Adam Schiff has finally gotten everything that he wanted since before Trump was even in office. The initial hearings for the impeachment of a sitting president who committed no crime. The whistleblower has still not been called to testify, even though Schiff could call him. I would say the name, but then this video would get tagged as private automatically. Here is the gist of how the trial started.
Those facts will not change, have not changed, despite what some people may say. And Ambassador Volker backed up those 4 fundamental facts in his testimony. He was the first witness called, but he's certainly not going to be based on what we've seen, he's not going to be the first guy called for the open hearing.
If one witness says that there's no quid pro quo, but multiple others says there is, what do you do with that?
We got the transcript where there's no quid pro quo. After
just of one witness, though, and there's others that...
After the transcript come out, even Democrat chairman said there's no quid pro quo. We got the 2 people on the call, President Zelensky, President Trump, who say no pressure, no pushing, no quid pro quo.
Who have a vested interest.
We have the fact that the Ukrainians didn't know aid was held up at the time of the call, and the aid was released, and the Ukrainians took no action to get the aid released. There was no announcement of investigations, no statement, no actual investigation started. So none of that has all happened. It is all based on what someone told someone. I'll read it to you. This is amazing from Ambassador Sondland's statements yesterday. Now listen to this. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I had conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmak on September 1st, 2019 in connection with Vice President Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. Now, who in the heck can follow that? Someone told someone that I told someone that someone else knew about this in a different meeting? That's what the other people's testimony is based on. Ambassador Volker, the special envoy, understands exactly what happened, those facts I just conveyed to you.
I think I have heard that line before.
From a very reliable friend of a girl whose sister is going out with someone very high up in the government. But for your own protection, I cannot discuss it at this time.
This entire thing is a joke. Trump's crime, bringing jobs back, and fighting the deep state. They realized this threat early on, which is why they created a fake dossier, just to spy on his campaign. This past week was the 30th anniversary of the Berlin Wall falling down. We not only need to celebrate this moment, but also remember that there are still many more walls to tear down. Think about this for a moment. Who built the wall and why? Was it made by West Berlin to keep East Berlin out? Or was it made by East Berlin to keep East Berlin in? The problem with socialism is that people eventually get tired of the government taking their money. There was a severe brain drain on their economy because the doctors were leaving to where they might actually be compensated. We actually see the same thing today. The price of CNN shares is falling rapidly, and the owners should blame themselves. Project Veritas showed right from the horse's mouth that the leadership was not interested in fair and unbiased coverage, but just attacking President Trump. Why invest so much time rather than actual journalism? That I could not tell you. People are turning off CNN, and millennials and Gen Zs are getting their news from actual, reliable sources and not the mainstream media. They only have themselves to blame. ABC squashed the Epstein story because it implicated Clinton and could have brought down Hillary Clinton, thus ensuring Donald Trump's victory. Stories get squashed every day. So what is the big deal, other than the fact that he was the single most prolific pedophile of our age? How many young girls were captured and abused over the 3 years that we had a silence about Epstein? How many fathers will never see their daughters again? How many men went into that apartment over 3 years? Even if this did not implicate Clinton, ABC would have still stopped the story because they are too busy showing off child drag queens on Good Morning America.
Please welcome welcome Desmond Napoles, a.k.a. Desmond is Amazing.
The media needs to normalize this and not talk about pedophiles, so that this can be normalized as well. Another thing. Who owns ABC? The Walt Disney Company, the same company that is famous for producing movies and television for children. There are words that I have for this sort of thing, but I would have to go to confession afterwards. New terms and conditions are coming to content creators for YouTube. Now the publisher can simply shut down any page that is not generating sufficient ad revenue. Of course, YouTube assures us that this is not the case, but has yet to make an official statement. If you are costing them server space or whatnot, and not producing any ad money, they have no reason to keep your channel up. That is why they are a publisher and not a platform. If only they had not removed the advertising from conservative channels and restricted their reach, YouTube would be making so much more. Just like CNN and ABC are more obsessed with stopping Trump than actually reporting news, YouTube is more concerned with stopping Trump than making money. 190 rockets. That is how many rockets that terrorists have fired into Israel over the past few days. Probably more by the time that this is posted. Granted, 90% were stopped by the Iron Dome, but that is still too many. This is a vicious attack by Muslim terrorists against an independent and sovereign state. No other nation in history has ever been attacked so blatantly and without regard for human life as Israel. This is not an issue of land, but it is something much darker and much more sinister. Austin is fighting against homelessness by clearing out the communities that are filled with public urination, feces in the street, and discarded drug needles. However, as soon as the forces move on, many of the people come back. In California, so-called victimless crimes will no longer be investigated by law enforcement. This is to save police resources, but it is going to create a dependency. Networks that help these people advise against giving the homeless money, but to fund the charities that help them to keep them from buying drugs. In Denver, a man is being sued by the city for not cleaning up the feces and drug needles outside of his place of business. That means that homeless people desecrate his property, and he gets stuck with the cleanup. Fixing this problem is not going to be easy at all. While we cannot turn a blind eye to those in need, we also cannot turn a blind eye to those who are harmed by these communities. Imagine getting sued for making a product because someone uses it for evil, even if you had nothing to do with what the person used it for. That is the situation that Sandy Hook has placed Remington Firearms under. They are suing the company for making the AR-15. Normally, legislation prevents this from happening, but the Supreme Court in Connecticut has decided that this cannot be. If a doctor makes a willful error during surgery, do you sue the person who made the scalpel or the doctor? If we open this floodgate, it will not be closed easily. A collection of Misotheists took time out of their busy schedule of failing to find contradictions in the Bible and decided that 2 vertebrae and a handful of femurs was enough evidence to show a transitional species. You heard correctly. They had barely any bones at all, just like what they did with Pakicetus. Somehow, I do not think that 2 vertebrae without a pelvis is enough to determine this. The only reason why the scientists made this out to be a transitional form is because they cannot have anyone thinking that there is a creator of humanity. Then, there might be some rules to follow. Meanwhile, a minority party in Britain has added a position to their platform that they will abolish private schools across Britain. Why would they want to get rid of it? other than ensuring jobs for the teachers in government schools? Simple. Then the government has complete and total control of the children for most of the weekday for political indoctrination. This also means there are almost no opportunities to defend against the lies of the evolution agenda. That is the real reason. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion.